y'all, Violet here, second generation homeschooling mom of 3. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an infant. Today I wanted to share with you a space unit study that I put together for my son at his request. So let's get into it. Both of my kids have liked space for a while. If you've watched any of my library haul videos, in several of them I shared a bunch of space books that we've checked out because my kids just really like space. So my son periodically will ask me to check things out that are space related, and this time he wanted some space reference books, but specifically he wanted to know more about the planets. So some of the books, not all of the books, but some of the books that I checked out are specifically about the planets, and then some of them are just more general space ones. So let's start with this one. This is My Book of Stars and Planets from DK. Pretty straightforward. This is exactly what he wanted. Real pictures of all of the planets so that he could draw them himself. He made a little display going along the bottom wall of our dining room with each of the planets, and he kind of spaced them. Obviously, they're not 100% to scale, but he did put the planets that are closer together, and the planets that are farther apart. And yeah, he did a really nice job with that, and he really liked this book. This was very helpful for him to complete that project. I also got him this DK Find Out Space Travel because he's really liked the other DK Find Out books. And he did look at this and he thought it was kind of interesting, but he is more focused on the planets right now, so he didn't look at this a ton. He did like this page with the different animals and things that they've sent to the moon. Or out into space, I mean. So this is a fun one if your child is interested in space travel. The next two, I've compared these to Visual Encyclopedia versus Smithsonian whatever exclamation point in my Ocean Encyclopedia video, but basically this is targeted at a slightly older audience. This uses more computer-generated images. I prefer this one on the whole. So we used this to look up some things that weren't, let me show you the table of contents, that weren't in the other books, just because it's a little bit more in-depth and it covers a lot of space facts. But this is not one that my son really brought us to read to him. Sometimes if he really likes a reference book, he'll ask to read it as his bedtime story. But this one was more like if he had a specific question, we'd go to it. This one we didn't really use at all. We just really don't like these Smithsonian noun exclamation point series of books. A lot of the images are real images, but they're edited in a way that makes them look computer generated. Some of them are computer generated. I don't know. I just, in general, don't care for this particular series from DK. This next one is another DK series. This particular volume is called The Mysteries of the Universe. It's got this foil edge. They have a bunch of different topics in this, like there's animals, aquatic life, plants. There's like a rocks and minerals one. But these books are basically, what if you're, I'd say probably pre-K through maybe first, second grade, maybe a little bit older. Child wants a bedtime story feel, but they want it to be nonfiction. That's what this series of books is. My kids in general tell me that there is not enough information in here. Like I'll read it and they are both like, that's it. That didn't really tell me anything I didn't already know. So they're already, if it's something that they're interested in, they're already beyond this type of book. If it's something that they're not interested in, they don't want to sit and listen. So this particular series has mostly been a miss for us just because of where my kids are at. This next book is also part of a series, the Welcome to the Museum series. This one's Planetarium. This one, the amount of information in each section is kind of exactly what my son especially is looking for, but he did not like that they were sketches instead of real pictures. They're like wood block print type illustrations. So I think they're beautiful, but I can definitely understand why he would prefer real pictures. But these are really cool. They're set up as if you're touring a museum, and so it has information about whatever you're looking at as if it's an exhibit, and so it's got the key to the display you're looking at, and this is a really lovely series of books. But in general, my children do prefer real pictures, especially if it's something sciencey, and so we haven't actually used these. I've checked out a bunch of different ones from the library and they look at them. They kind of like it when I read different sections to them, but it's not something that they come back to over and over again, if that makes sense. And then that is kind of all the reference books that I could stomach reading. So these next books are more fiction or fun kind of space related things. This book, Pluto, is in this author has a whole series of space and earth related books. There might be a picture on the back. Sorry, this is the Braille edition, so it's a little bit set up a little bit different. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of different books in this series. We read all of them. This Pluto one is the newest one. I've never gotten a Braille edition of a book from our library before, but I just thought it was really, really cool. So they have the title punched on these, or whatever words are punched on this sheet. This one just has Braille on one side. This page has the Braille on it. But some of these sheets, so they'll have, when you flip it this way, this is the Braille for this page. And then this here has punched going the other way, kind of in between the lines from the other side. Braille for this page. I don't know. I haven't checked out a Braille book before because we don't need them. This just happens to be the edition of this book they sent us, and I thought that was so cool to show my kids that and kind of explain what it was for. Anyway, my son loves all the books in this series, so that was a hit. We hadn't read that one before. We checked out this Mousetronaut book. I think it's the most recent book in the Mousetronaut series. We've read all the other ones, so my kids kind of enjoyed catching up with the mice again. They remembered the other books in the series. I wasn't sure if they would. There's also, I think it's called Story Time in Space. I'll link it in the comments below, but I think they read some of the Mousetronauts on that. But that's astronauts on the International Space Station, and they read various space-related picture books. Check out this Dinosaurs in Space book just because I thought it was silly, and it really is just silly. There's nothing scientific in this, but my kids enjoyed it. And it was a nice break for me from reading a ton of nonfiction. I do enjoy nonfiction books, but sometimes it's a bit much when it's all my son wants to read. This next one, Mission to Space, is about the first Native American astronaut. So this is a really cool book. And this is all real pictures. My kids, we've checked this book out before. My kids always like it. So yeah. May Among the Stars, we've checked out several times before as well. It's about Mae Jemison, the first African-American woman in space. So it's mostly her as a child dreaming about going to space. And at the end, she finally does. So that's a fun one. This next one is called A Star Explodes, the story of supernova 1054. So this is not something that my kids really had learned about before, so they really enjoyed this book. And I liked the illustrations too. So yeah, that was a fun one. A Place for Pluto. This is a really cute book about Pluto no longer being a planet and what it is instead, a dwarf planet. And it has some of the other dwarf planets. And there's a couple of books kind of around this theme where Pluto finds out he's no longer a planet. And of those kinds of books, this one is our favorite. Ada and the Galaxies. This is about a girl who really likes stargazing, basically, and she learns about galaxies and things like that. So this is kind of just a more poetic picture book. This next book is called What Miss Mitchell Saw, and it's about a woman who discovered a comet, and someone else, a man, reported seeing it a few days after she'd seen it, and at first they gave credit to him for discovering it, but then she wrote a letter proving that no, she was the first one to see it, and so it's named Miss Mitchell's Comet after her. So this is a really nice book as well. And then we have Goodnight Astronaut. This is written by the astronaut Scott Kelly, and it's basically all the places he's fallen asleep, including on the International Space Station. So yeah, most of this is when they're kids. Here they are as fighter pilots, sleeping in the cockpit and underwater. Yeah, this is just a really, really cute book. A nice one to read before bedtime. And then here's some real pictures of them. And then this next book is kind of similar in theme to Miss Mitchell's Comet. It's called Caroline's Comets. She was the first woman to discover a comet. So this goes through her life and her story and talks about telescopes and things like that. So yeah, this one was cool too. So that is all I have for our space unit. I did check out these books with my son in mind, but my daughter tagged along for all of this and she liked all of these picture books as well. Some of them we've already read before just because my kids have been into space for a while, but it was nice to kind of devote a chunk of time to reading all of them one after another, kind of making connections between all of these different space things. So I hope you found this helpful. I will link everything in the description box below. I am an Amazon affiliate, so if you click on an Amazon link and make a purchase, I do receive a small commission. Thank you for watching.